We're going to draw the eggs, larva, and pupa of a mosquito. And you will need a pencil, fairly soft. If you have drawing pencils, you could maybe use a 2B or a B, but this is just marked as a number 2 pencil, but it's a pretty nice soft lead. And a very thin pen like that to do some labeling. And a white pencil. I use Barrel Prismacolor, which are really soft. Or you could use maybe a piece of chalk or a white Conte. Something in a pinch, maybe a white crayon, but I recommend a really soft white pencil. And you'll need a copy of this, which you can download and print out. I have it on light blue cardstock. It's kind of a little heavier weight paper. You could put it on regular paper. I just like working on cardstock. It makes it a little more durable, but you could use paper. You can use light blue. If you don't have light blue, you can use a light tan or a light gray. I just thought blue was kind of pretty for this one. And let's take a look at the life cycle of a mosquito first. I just found this on the internet. Not trying to break copyright. If you go to Google Images, life cycle of mosquito, you'll get a zillion of them. You'll see this one and a lot of others. Okay, so because it's a life cycle, it goes round and round and round. You can start anywhere you want. You can start here, here, or here. Well, let's start with the adult, because when we think of mosquitoes, we usually think of these little guys that bite us. We're real familiar, most of us, with what these look like and what they do, right? There's no big mystery about the adult mosquito. So the female mosquito comes and she lays her eggs on the water, on the surface. And there's a whole bunch of them here. This is what we're going to draw this. And they call it an egg raft because they're all glued together and they float around like a little raft. Not all mosquito species do this. There are some other variations, but a lot of them do egg rafts. So we're going to do an egg raft. And then the eggs hatch after a few days. You can see they're little tiny larvae here. And then the larvae grow and grow and get bigger. And then they turn into a pupa, this really weird looking thing here. And the pupa then, right here at the surface, the pupa case cracks open and the adult mosquito crawls out and then sits there and dries off for a few hours, lets its wings get dry, and then it can fly away. Now, if it's a female, it may repeat this whole cycle. If it's a male, it'll go off and find a female and it'll eat nectar and have a pleasant life and not come back to the water. But the females will come back to the water. Okay, so let's look at the eggs. Let's do a close-up drawing of the eggs. Actually, there's not too much to see. I don't have any extra pictures for you. We're just going to go straight to drawing it. And I'll show you first what we're going to draw. Okay, we're going to draw something that looks like that. Okay, an egg raft. And we're going to draw it right over here, right where it says eggs are laid in rafts. The eggs hatch in a few days. So I'm going to zoom in right here. Okay, we're going to be drawing right in here. I left you an open space. Of course, this line represents the surface of the water. So what we're going to do is we're going to sketch very lightly at first. I'm going to make some light guidelines here. Okay, like this. One here. Just draw 2 lines, but make them go in a little bit. Okay, not straight up and down, just in a tiny bit. Keep them very light. And then on the top, we're going to do this very flat oval, like this. Really light. Keep it light, just so you can barely see it. And on the bottom, we're going to draw the same curve, the bottom curve, this curve you just drew. We're going to make that curve on the bottom, like this. Okay, so that looks like maybe a cylinder, an upside down cup or something. So that's our guideline of where the eggs are going to go. So now let's draw eggs. Let's draw one in the middle. They're just these kind of round, look like a cucumber or something like that. Right, and then draw another one. And the female, she lays these one by one very patiently and then sticks them together. They're kind of sticky, so they stick together. There, and then I'm going to come back over here. There. Okay, and then as we get towards the edges, we're going to make them thinner because of perspective, as they go around the corner, so to speak, you're going to see less of them. In fact, we can kind of make this one where it's more like a C. We just won't see that side. Make them thinner and thinner, like that. Same thing over here, make it thinner and thinner, thinner and thinner. Okay, and then of course once you have your real lines in, then you can erase the guidelines if you want. Or, and sometimes in a sketch, if the guidelines stay there a little bit, it's okay. Looks artsy. Okay, so let's make the egg sticking out the top. All you have to do is go like this. You make this shape, like little bumps. Start in the front. Little bumps, little eggs sticking up like this. And then go towards the back. Make more little bumps until you reach that back line. You can go above the line a little bit. Okay, there's our little egg raft. So now to finish it, I'm going to shade just a little bit here. There's two things I want to do. One is shading and the other is put a highlight in. I'm going to shade a little bit just on the edges, around the edges of the eggs. I don't think I can get in much more. Yep, it's going to blur, so that's about as far as we're going to get. Okay, you can just see, you don't want a big heavy stripe around them. You can kind of use your finger a little bit to kind of smear a little bit. But you kind of want it a little bit darker in where the crack kind of goes in here, the crack between the eggs. You kind of want that a little bit darker. See that? Okay, just want that a little bit darker. Now you can kind of sneak up on it. If you start light, you can always go a little bit darker. So yeah, I want to go back over. You go back over it a couple times. And then go, I think I still want it a little darker. And then in the bottom here, we can kind of put a little bit of dark in between there. Okay. Now, this would be resting on a kind of a stretchy, like the water. It's resting on the water, but it'll dip down a little bit. Actually, we could have had the line go down a little bit, but it's okay. Okay. Let's make that a little more. Now, I think I'm going to shade back in here a little bit too, just between the... Now we just need to take the white pencil, and I'm going to put a little highlight in to make these look shiny. It's basically just a white line right here. A white line on the front of each egg. Okay, does that make it look a little shiny? See, just makes it look like it's a little glistening, gives a little texture. Okay, and that is all we're going to do for the egg raft. Our egg raft is done. So we're going to zoom back out to here, and we're ready for the next stage. The egg is going to hatch. We're going to put a little tiny larva right here. Okay, so let me show you a picture of the little larvae, how they grow. Okay, so it starts out very small, so maybe the egg was just like this big, okay? Like that. Okay. So it hatches out and it's a little tiny, and then it grows and molts 4 times, usually 4. You know, some species it's different, but on average it's 4. And they call each one of these an instar, just like instar, I-N-S-T-A-R. We're going to draw this one that's in the red, the 4th instar, the biggest one. So the reason that it has to do this is because it has an exoskeleton, right? You have an endoskeleton. Your bones are on the inside, and you can grow, and your bones grow right along your skin. But this guy has, doesn't have that. Insects have exoskeletons. Their tough part is on the outside. And so how can you grow if you're kind of in a tight plastic bag? Well, they have to split open, they grow kind of inside of it, and then they pop open and kind of real quick puff up, get hard. That is when they're outside of the water, and then relax, and then they have room inside their new shell, and then they grow some more, and they keep having to pop open their shells, and that's often called molting. So this guy has to go through 4 stages where he kind of pops out of his shell and grows another one, but the shell is kind of soft. I mean, it's in the water, it's very soft, but still it has to kind of pop out of its plastic bag and get bigger and bigger. It does that 4 times. So we're going to draw the first one and we're going to draw the 4th one. So this one here, now we're not going to do a lot of detail to make more sense when we draw the big one over here, but right about here, okay, between the eggs and the words, right about there, okay, draw kind of the egg shape, a little bit bigger, maybe. Something like that. It doesn't have to be exactly the same shape as mine. I'm going to zoom back in a little bit. Now you see where you can draw it. Okay, nice and long there. And then we're going to draw on this side a little thing sticking off like that. And you'll see what it is in a minute. Just trust me. Another little one here. And then this long thing, this is going to be the abdomen, as we're going to see. This comes in segments, so we're going to cut it in half, and then each one of those in half, and then each one of those in half, like this. And then we'll kind of make whoop, 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 kind of make them look round, whoop, round, 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 whoop, 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 like that. And down here, then we want to draw kind of a larger oval like this, and then a slightly smaller oval like that. This is going to be the thorax, and this is going to be the head. And we'll take a better look at that in great detail in just a minute. I'm going to just shade mine a little bit like that on one side. Shade that just so it looks like it's kind of light's coming down from there. I don't think I made that one big enough there. Okay, and then I'm going to put a little antennae going off here. And those other little things coming there, you'll see what those are in a minute. I'm going to give it a little eye spot like that. See that? And then some hairs. We'll take a greater detailed look at the hairs in just a minute. Mosquito larvae have lots of little hairs coming off. Like that. Little things coming off like that. Okay, and then I'm going to label this. I'm going to use this pen for labeling. And I'm going to put first instar. And that's what those stages are called. When a larva grows, they're called instars. Okay, and of course it says here, the larvae have to shed their skins about 4 times while they are growing. These 4 stages are called instars. This takes 3 to 7 days. Kind of depends on the weather, the temperature, the species, things like that. What do the larvae eat? They eat algae, bacteria, and other microorganisms. So these things are really tiny. These are probably about this long, little little tiny things, this long. A really grown mosquito larvae is only as long as your finger, probably. So this guy's really tiny. All right, so let's take a look at the larvae in greater detail. So the larva is going to look the same, as you can see. They pretty much look the same through their stages, they just get bigger. So if we draw a really big one, it'll be a lot easier to see its anatomy. Alrighty, so let's map this out first. Get where I can see the whole page. Okay. Now, first note, it says up here, mosquito larvae are often called wigglers or wrigglers. And if you've seen them move around, that's obviously a very good word. And if you haven't, you can go onto YouTube and just type in mosquito larvae wiggling or something, and you'll get some great videos people taken of mosquito larvae doing their thing, wiggling. They just kind of, in the water, they move like that, squiggling all the time. Okay, so we're going to start right up here. First thing we're going to do, you see this little gap here? Okay, find that. And there's two dots, one here and one here. Okay, I'm going to zoom back in a little bit. We're going to connect this side to this dot and this side to here like this. Like that. Okay, and we'll draw a little squishy circle right here. Kind of go like that. What we've drawn is the siphon. This is the breathing tube the larva will use, because it's not a fish. It needs to breathe air, and this is the tube that it's going to use. So then right here, the next thing, we'll come back and we'll make it look nice in a minute. Right here we need to draw a little circle. This is a guideline, so don't make it too heavy. Something like that. Okay, and of course, anytime you need to pause the video, go ahead and pause it to catch up. Something like that, okay? Alright, now I'm going to back out a little more because I need to show you where to go with this. There's two dots down here, right here, and right here. See these two dots? We're going to go down this side to this dot and over here to this dot, like that. Just kind of lightly sketch it in. So if you make a mistake, you want to change it, you can. Don't need a ruler or anything, just kind of do the best you can. There. Sometimes it helps if you use your whole hand instead of your fingers. You just kind of use your whole arm. Okay, that's going to be the abdomen. And then down here, you see there's a dot here and a dot here. Okay, we'll make a little this. You want to make an oval that goes a little past this dot, like this. Kind of circle. I mean, not too far off a circle. You don't want it to be. You don't want it to look like one of those eggs. That would be way too oval. Just kind of. Just sketch really lightly so you can erase it if you want to. There we go. Something like that. And then see this dot down here? That's going to be the end of another circle. Or an oval. You want to make an oval that goes from here, kind of up a little past that dot. Just right about at the dot. This is going to be the head. Because insects all have three body parts: the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. So that's what we have here, except plus a siphon. We have head, thorax, abdomen, and a siphon. And in an adult insect, the legs go on the thorax. They always come off the thorax. Even if the abdomen's really long, like in a dragonfly, it's got kind of a small thorax and it's a really long abdomen. But all the legs always come off the thorax. So we're not going to have legs here, but we're going to have like hairs instead of legs. So let's go back up here and finish this thing right here. Zoom back in, right there. Got the siphon. Now we can erase this. All right, we don't need that anymore. Just needed that as a guideline. And right off of here, we want to draw another little, not as long as the siphon, kind of a something like this. This is going to be called the saddle. Kind of just a little offshoot part. Okay, and then we're going to divide like we did with our little tiny first instar. We need to divide the abdomen into 8 segments. Okay, a mosquito larva always has 8 segments. So to do that evenly, since 8 is an even number, we can first divide this in half. Kind of just use your eyeball, just kind of go, see that even if I kind of, is this about half? And you look, is this the same as this? Yeah, it looks like about half. Okay, and then just look at this bottom segment here and divide it in half. Something like that, right? And then just look at this top part just here and divide it in half. About here, right? And then we want to divide each of these in half. Right there, right there, right about here, and right about here. Okay, so we get approximately equal. Don't have to get out your ruler or anything, just you can just use your eye, it'll be fine. So let's go ahead and kind of put these in a little better. Go like that, and then make these look like nice round segments. Make like little letter C's. You don't have to exactly stay in your guideline. They're just guidelines. And then we'll do the other, just like this. There we go, and then we're going to leave the cross lines. Don't make these too dark though, okay? Because you can kind of see they're kind of light. You see in this one, you can see the segments, but they're not too dark. So that's probably dark enough. All right, and then we want to go back up here and we want to put in something that's going to be called gills. Go draw one like that. 2 things like this, and then add one that looks like it's coming out behind that one. Oops, I kind of hooked into it. There, and then draw one that's kind of it's coming out there. Or you can just go 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. Make sure there's 4 of them. I'll tell you about those in just a minute. And then let's just finish down here. Okay, we've got this. This is pretty much all we need here. On the head, we're going to need to put in some eyes. The eyes are going to go, they're kind of funny looking. I'll show you here. Look at this. See that? Weird. Kind of come in from the side. So, kind of like it's, I don't know, like a edge of a Halloween mask or something there. Like that. Okay. And then it has, if you want to add this, it's got like a plate. You can't see this in some pictures, but it has like a line coming down like this on its head. And then it's going to have, because it's an insect, it's going to have antennae. There's one. Zoom in on that. let's draw the other one over here. It's got fairly short antennae, doesn't it? Some insects have really long antennae. You can kind of tell how well an insect can see by the length of its antennae. If it has really long antennae, probably doesn't have very good vision. If it has really short ones, probably has pretty good vision. Actually, look at the size of the eyes here and the short antennae. Actually, these guys can see really well. If you come over their puddle, or if they're in a bucket, and you come near and your shadow goes over them, they can see that. And whoop, they'll immediately swim down to the bottom and hide. They have very good eyesight, at least for seeing possible attackers. Okay, and then at the bottom of the antennae, they have these little hairs, a couple hairs. As we'll see, these guys have lots of hairs everywhere. And then in the middle here, they've got something called mouth brushes. And what you want to do is basically draw. It'll look sort of like another antennae, sort of, these two things, but they're not. Let's see in a minute, like something like that, okay? And then see if I can zoom in at all anymore without getting blurry. All right, and then you're going to put some extra lines like this to make it look sort of like a comb, but it's actually called a brush. It'll look sort of like a comb. And those are called mouth brushes. And then you're going to put two little tiny little parts here. These are just two little pincher thingies that bring the food in. The brushes work to sweep the food towards the mouth. So the actual mouth would be right here in between these two little things. Okay, and then if you want to, you can draw some little food particles. What does it eat? Well, it says right up here they eat algae, small algae, tiny microscopic algae, bacteria, and other tiny microorganisms. So they're eating things in the water that you can't see, little tiny microscopic things. So as long as we are down here, let's just finish up the head. Let's label. These are the antennae, A-N-T-E-N-N-A-E. It's often easy to forget these two N's here. Two N's for two antennae. Right? And then these little things here are called the mouth brushes. I'm going to put an arrow. I'm going to go on the other side here and label mouth brushes. And then we know these are little food particles. I won't bother you with names of these things. It's hard to find really good labeled picture. This is the best one I could find. Here it has lots of little labels, but it says mouth brush, antennae hair, antenna, but it doesn't have a name. See these things? This is the mouth brush. Here's the antennae, short little antennae with the hairs, but it doesn't have a label for this thing. So we're just going to leave ours unlabeled too, but we know what it does. It's the little things, little mouth parts. Okay, so, and then we can go ahead and label the eye. And this is a compound eye. Compound means it's made up of lots of tiny lenses, whole bunches of them. And I'm pretty sure there's another little spot here. They have little, you can see in some pictures, there's a little, I think it's a little simple eye spot. We'll put it in the pupa drawing. Okay, so let's finish up shading this here so it looks round. Now our goal is to make this look nice and round. And once again, I like to use my finger in there to get a nice, it just makes it nice and gradual, so it's not all streaky. And up under here, actually I'm gonna kind of just make that look like one line. Goes under like that. And then we're going to do a little magic with the white pencil here in just a second. Okay, so we have it. It's looking pretty round. Then we're going to take the white pencil and kind of brush it around here in the middle. Make it most intense. I can't say darkest because it's light, so it would be the whitest in the middle, and then kind of go a little bit on that side. It's like reverse shading, where you want it to be less white. Then you go really intense here, and then you kind of back it off. There, that kind of gives it a little shine, doesn't it? Makes it look kind of super 3D. And if you want to know the name of this thing here, it's actually kind of funny. You don't have to label it. I'm going to go ahead and label mine. This plate, this section right here in the middle, I just think this is very funny. It's called the mental plate. Mental, M-E-N-T-A-L. So like when you think of the word mental, like we have like mental processes in our brain, you kind of think of thinking, and somehow I don't think there's a lot of mental processes going on behind this particular mental plate. I don't think the mosquito larva's got a lot of, thinking going on there. So I think it's kind of funny. It's called the mental plate. Now let's finish up the thorax. We're just going to let's go straight up and just finish them as we go up. So the main thing we're concerned about here with the thorax is just simply to get it looking round, which is a little tricky when you're shading something that's round. You can't just make your pencil go back and forth. It's kind of easier to shade something straight because you can just go up and down and up and down. Here, you're kind of on a curve. So I take it in little bits like this. Just be really patient. Go lighter and lighter toward the inside. And then remember, you can always use your finger to get in there and help you out a little bit. See, I have some lines there. It looks kind of liney, but if I take my finger, see, the lines disappeared. Try to pretend you're having fun, so you don't get too impatient. We're almost done here. And if you want to take more time to shade, just pause the video. You can take all the time you want. Okay, I'm just going to calm mine down here in just a second. Okay. So then we're just going to, then now we need to add some hairs. This is actually kind of fun. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. This guy's got, instead of 3 legs coming out, he's got 3 tufts of hair coming out. You just kind of go like that. Don't worry too much about it. There's a clump, and then kind of that. Just 3 or 4 like that, and then like coming out the bottom like that. It's totally fun. Okay, and we're going to put some white on in just a minute. But first, I'm going to shade up the abdomen. Now this we can even label. This is the thorax, right? This section, that ball, is the thorax, and that is where, when it's an adult, that's where the legs will come off. Right now it's just got hairs. So let's shade the abdomen now and make these guys look nice and kind of roundish. don't go in too far into the middle because we're going to do something kind of tricky in the middle. We're going to show an interior part. Okay, I'm just going to go around. And then, of course, if your little guideline is there, it bothers you, you can just get rid of it. So I made it light. And this one I'm just going to keep going here. Now this I don't want to make too heavy. I'm going to shade just the tiniest tad on here. Shade on the bottom a little bit to make them look a little round. But then we're going to put in an interior part. The neat thing about these larvae is that you can see through them. They're kind of transparent. So here's one, it's not a great picture. Here they are hanging on the surface with little siphons here. And you see these dark lines inside them. And see in this guy, they don't show them in the other one. I guess that's my best picture. You can actually see there's tubes running down the middle. Okay, so we're going to draw these tubes. This is a siphon. Sometimes they call it a snorkel, but mostly they call it a siphon. In fact, we can even just label it right now, right here. I'm going to put siphon is S-I-P-H-O-N. And then air will go down here into the siphon. Right, and it's a breathing tube, just like you would use a snorkel if you were, you know, snorkeling, not scuba diving, but snorkeling in the ocean, and you have a little tube that goes up to the surface. That's like his little breathing snorkel. So they constantly are having to come to the surface to get air because it's not a fish. They don't have gills. Actually, let's go ahead and do this right now. It has something called gills, which is very unfortunate because they're not gills. These things sticking out here point an arrow, and we're going to put them in quotes. Quote, gills. And when you put something in quotes, that means we're saying this word, but we're not really meaning it. We're meaning it with we're using a different meaning to the word. So this is quote gills. They named it gills before they really knew what it was. They just assumed that they were gills. And so for decades and decades and decades, scientists have been calling them gills. And then not too long ago, they did some really intensive research, and they did things like they snipped the gills off of a mosquito larvae. Let's see what happens. Well, it was just fine, and it breathed just fine. And through a series of experiments, they realized that the gills are actually for getting rid of excess water. The mosquitoes' larvae outside, it's like skin, is always letting water in. It's in water all the time. And so it needs a way to maintain the water balance in its body and get rid of excess water. And they're pretty sure that maybe that's what's going on here. It's kind of hard to know what they are. There's still some confusion about it. But when every single picture you'll see labeled, it'll say gills. Sometimes it'll say anal gills because they're near the back end. But it's kind of unfortunate. In fact, I would even like to put a note here in the empty space. You got some empty space right below the word gills. We're going to label something here, but if you go down right here, you don't have to do this, but if you want to add note, quote, gills, use those quote marks, gills are not, and I'll underline the word not, used for breathing. These are not like fish gills. See, scientists make mistakes, don't they? Comma, but for, let's say, water balance, for getting rid of water, getting rid of excess water. That's what they're pretty sure they do, is maintain the water balance. Okay, so you can get it up close. Pause that if you want. Okay, so the gills that are not gills, actually, and this thing here that it's attached to, this is called the saddle, but it's not really a saddle. This is called the saddle, just like riding a horse saddle. And then it's got some hairs that stick out here. 1, 2, 3, just a couple, like that. It's got a little tuft of hairs. These hair tufts are really fun to make. It's got a tuft of hair there, and then it's got a lot of bushy hair things coming out of here. This is fun, like that. And if you want to know what they're called, this is called the ventral brush. Ventral, V-E-N-T-R-A-L. Ventral has to do with the stomach, things on the stomach side of the body. And then the top, the opposite of ventral, is dorsal. So this thing here is called the dorsal tuft. If you want to know what it's called the dorsal tuft. Okay, so that little thing sticks off, and they're not exactly sure what these hairs are used for. Maybe help or swimming or sticking to the surface. They're not 100% sure the exact function of those particular hairs. But now we got that part all labeled. The gills that are not gills. Alright, so now I think we're ready to put this interior part. So the siphon, which does take in air, comes down. There's little air tubes that go down into the body, and that's what we're going to draw. There's 2 of them, but they're very close together. So here in the siphon will just be 2 lines, and it might actually look like 1 line. That's okay if it does. And then they come around here like this. I want to get close, but I want to not get too close here. So then one comes down here and one comes down here, and they go along, kind of leave a little space. They're fairly close. Don't make them too dark because they are on the inside, but you can definitely see them. If you look at pictures of mosquito larvae, you will definitely see them. What are those things? Now there would also be like an intestine running down there, but the tubes are the things that really show up well. And you'll even kind of see them go into here a little bit. Okay, and then they kind of taper off, and there's little tubes going out from them. So the air comes in here, it goes down these central, and there's those little, oops, sorry about that, like that, okay? There's little tubes that would be leading off like this. But we're not going to draw those because you really don't see those. Okay, and then they just kind of taper off like that. Okay, so what are those called? Those are called the tracheal tubes. If you want to label those, I'm going to label it up here. I'm going to zoom back in. I get dizzy while I was zooming. And I'm going to write tracheal tubes. Like you have a trachea, that's your breathing tube in your throat. Right? So trachea, T-R-A-C-H-E-A-L, tracheal tubes. And it's here in the siphon, and they continue. I'll point to both of them. It's all one long tube that goes from the siphon all the way down. Okay, we are almost done with this guy. Let's do our little magic of white, and then we'll do another label. So I'm going to put white, some in here. Let's do this, make it look like it's like we did with the head, sort of. You want it darkest in the middle. Press real hard, and then not so hard when you get to the outside, like that. And it kind of mixes with the pencil a little bit. That's all right. Okay, it just kind of makes it pop a little bit. It just makes it kind of look super 3D. And then we'll keep it going up here between the tubes and a little on the outside of the tubes. Okay, and then I'm just going to put a little up here and like that too. And then I'm going to put a little on the top of the saddle there too, like that. Okay, the magic of white highlights is looking good. All right, now we're going to put in a few more fun hairs, and then we'll be done. So each one of these segments here has a little tuft of hairs, and it looks in most of the pictures like they only have 2, maybe 3, but I'm just going to just do 2 like this. I'm just going to go like that, coming off. And they are called the lateral hairs. Lateral just means side. Lat means side. L-A-T-E-R-A-L. Lateral. The lateral hairs. Now, the main way he swims is by moving. He's got muscles he moves, but the hairs probably play a role in helping him get around. Okay, and then let's just label, since we have the thorax, it's kind of obvious this is the head, right? And that's kind of like, duh. This is the thorax, and let's just put a little line. I'll show you what I'm going to do. You can watch and then you can do it. Just a little arrow going like from here, like this. And then I guess let's go ahead and write abdomen. And then I'll finish there, kind of going down to here, kind of to indicate this section. The whole section, all 8 of them, is the abdomen. This whole thing. I guess this would be kind of the end of the abdomen. It would still be considered part of the abdomen. Okay, now I'm just going to add a note right here. I'm going to call him the 4th instar. He's the biggest one, ready to turn into a pupa. The 4th instar. So let's finish it up and draw the pupa right here. Kind of zoom in here. Now all you get in this one is a dot. See that right there? That's all you get. You get a line and a dot, but you'll be just fine. And you don't have to worry too much because these are really blobby, right? So you don't have to worry about it. It's not a portrait of George Washington or anything. So let me show you a photograph of what this guy looks like. Look at that. Now, this is actually a reflection. That's not really there. I wondered what that was in all the pictures, and I finally figured out. This is a reflection. You're looking from under the water. The water's acting like a mirror. These 2 little tubey things are touching the surface, and there's some hairs here. They're touching the surface, but this is actually a reflection. So here's a picture that has a little less of a reflection. You can see a little better. So you can see here, this is the abdomen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are the abdomen. Those are the little gills that aren't gills hanging off, I think, or maybe the part of it. So the siphon kind of disappears here. It doesn't have a siphon anymore. Instead of a siphon, it's got 2 of them up here called trumpets. It grows 2 little siphons right there, and then this thorax and the head fuse together to make one giant thorax head thing called the cephalothorax. Its eye gets huge, doesn't it? Okay, so in this you can see a few inner parts. We're just going to kind of indicate a little, well, you'll see. We'll make it look really good. Okay, so you want to start with a circle, really light, between the line and the dot. That kind of shows you your maximum size for your circle. Give me a little smaller even. It's approximate. And if you want to move it over, if you're afraid you're going to bump into this and you want to move it over a little bit, that's fine. Just move it over a little bit. Okay, something like that. And then we want to make his, remember, so the circle, what we've drawn is like this, sort of. And then we want to make it, it's like a, they always say it's comma shaped. Like if you do a little comma, except this will be a reverse comma. If you flip the other way, it look like a comma. A comma, if you look closely, comma kind of looks something like that. So they call them a comma shaped. So we need to make this part. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect because he's really blobby looking. This will be the comma part coming down here. And then like this. Okay, and then kind of erase that a little bit. And then over here, he's going to look a little bit like, more like this. You see, you start with a basic shape, but then you adapt it a little bit as you go. On our final drawing, we're not going to have a perfect circle, but it was sure helpful to start out with a guideline circle. Okay, and then that kind of dips down a little bit, like this. Okay, so that's it. That's the basic shape. And this guy is, you see up here, mosquito pupae are often called tumblers. And if you watch them in the water, that's what they do. They tumble around. They don't eat, and in a few days they'll turn into adults. They just kind of swim around and hang near the surface. And this is where the adult will split out. Meanwhile, what's going on inside here is that the adult mosquito is forming. It's the amazing metamorphosis that's going on inside of here, and then it'll just split open and the adult will come out the top. But we're not going to see an adult inside here. You'll see we're gonna make it look like it's not ready to split yet. Okay, so let's start by doing the abdomen here, and let's draw. It's little 8 segments. Let's start up at the top here. Bring this up here, and this right here is going to be a segment like that. And then there's a little segment that goes like this. Top segment kind of blended in like that. So that's 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And if you kind of have to adjust yours and make it a little longer, that's fine. And then the only tricky thing on here is let's make these segments, it looks like in the pictures they go they go in a little bit like this. I don't know how to describe this. You see how it kind of goes out, and then you start in, and it kind of goes out, and it starts in again, like that. So that it looks like it's tucked up inside, like their sleeves tucked inside each other. That's a very common shape when you draw insects. Their legs look like that. So it's like each one is a little bit wider at the bottom. It's like bell-bottom pants or something. Okay, and let's just go ahead and mess with the shading here. Go ahead and make it more darker under here. So he's going to be get my finger in there. Now he does look a little stripy here, and that's because I'm going to put a white highlight on here. Just make him a little less stripy. So the pupa stage doesn't have a mouth, it doesn't eat. That's very common in the insect world. They do all their eating while they're in the larval stage. And in the butterflies and moths, that's the larval stage. It's the caterpillars. You see the caterpillars munching on the leaves all the time. They have to do all that eating because they have to save up energy. It takes a lot of energy in here. The pupa is going to be reforming its body into an adult insect, and that takes a lot of cellular energy. So it has it all stored up, all the eating it did. Okay, so let's put these things coming out the back. And then let's add some hairs. This is the fun part, right? And so you can always go back in like that. I decided, oh, I want that a little bit darker. You can always make it a little bit darker there. And then like that, okay? Let's add some hairs here. Just, they look best when you do them quickly like that. Okay, and then let's do our white magic. Even if you do make it look like a white stripe, it'll look good. Now I just remembered a couple more hairs. Speaking of hairs, they're so much fun to make. If you go over on here, there's actually even a few more hairs on this thing. There's a couple of hairs right on the side of the siphon. And then there's little tiny hairs down here. So if you want to add a little couple hairs there, I just remembered about those. There's actually a few right here too. Boop, 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 little tiny ones. Okay, just a little trim detail. Okay, we got our abdomen looking pretty good there. So now let's do the cephalothorax. It's a big head and thorax all wrapped into one. Now let's go ahead and put the eye on. The eye is going to be huge right here. Look how big that thing is going to be. Huge, huge eye. And then I'm pretty sure it's got this little extra eye spot. You can see it in a lot of the photographs. I saw it labeled in one photograph somewhere and then I couldn't find it again. I think it's, well, it's a simple eye spot. A lot of insects have a compound eye. This is the compound eye, and it's made up of little tiny lenses. And then they have an extra little spot, and all the simple eye spot does is it tells light from dark, basically. It's just like a light sensor. It doesn't really see anything. Alright. It's a good thing this guy's small. This would be kind of shocking to see it if it were like huge in the water. Okay, and then let's make a nice line like this. It's kind of like that yin-yang kind of thing. Like this little guideline going like that. And then in this space, right here in this kind of curve, it's going to curve right here. Make a little teardrop shape like this right here. And then come over here and make a little teardrop shape here like that. It doesn't matter exactly where it is. It'll be fine wherever it is because these guys are all squishy in the middle and the parts move around. Okay, and then we're going to make this. Then this will look like it's a loop. Maybe I made this a little too large here. It'll kind of look like it's a loop around here like this. We'll kind of darken these in a little. And then one more teardrop shape, go like that. One more will be right here. Do another one right here. So it'll look like it's kind of like I think you can see some of the guts in some of these. See, they have these loopy little guts. So I used one picture. It wasn't this one I just showed you, but just one of them that kind of looked like this. And I thought, okay, we'll go with this one. This is kind of what it looked like. And then, but we're going to make this kind of a little, I think you really can't tell sort of what it is. We're going to muck it up a little bit. And in here, got shade in there. Kind of wipe around a little bit, because don't make these things too dark. Just a suggestion. See how they're just kind of fading like that, okay? Kind of fadey because they're inside. Come over here and then we'll just make him a little darker around the outside here. Down around the bottom. And then on a lot of the drawings they have, it kind of looks like there's like lines, folds here. So let's just go ahead and kind of, if you look at other illustrations, it'll be like, oh yeah, they have lines down there. I'm not really sure what they are, but folds of some kind. That kind of adds to the texture. So just making it blank. Okay, and then down like that. Around the humongous eye. Alrighty, and then let's shade the top just a little bit. And then this is where the legs would eventually go, right? Off the thorax. And some pictures you see, it looks like there's kind of darkish areas here. I don't know whether it's anticipating legs or something, but instead of just leaving that area blank, let's just kind of go ahead and fill it in like that. A little bit. Give it some texture like that. Okay, now when you get over to here, oh, actually, let's put a little white. This is actually a little thorax segment. Okay, there. When you get over to here, this is where these trumpets go. Little trumpet-shaped things. There's one. And this one, it'll go, let's see, let's move in just a little bit. This one will go on this side. That'll be that side trumpet. And then the other one you're not going to see totally, right? It's on the other side like that. And those are the things that are going to be the little siphons. They're called trumpets. You want to label them? Trumpet. Or I'm going to put plural trumpets. And then let's label this compound eye as opposed to simple eye. Compound eye. And I believe this here, I'm going to go out on a limb, but I'm pretty sure I saw this labeled on one drawing. This is called the ocellus. O-C-E-L-L-U-S. And the ocellus is that simple eye spot that just sees light and dark. And then this whole thing is the cephalo. Cephalo means head. C-E-P-H-A-L-O. Cephalo, I think is it's Greek for head. And then thorax, all one word. Cephalothorax. Okay, let's just add a few more little white highlights here. I'm just going to kind of go, imagining that it's kind of roundish. So you can look at another picture too. Look at a photograph. I'm going to just put a few. That one, she's kind of blending with my pencil there. I've got too much pencil on it, so I'll just skip it. I'll leave it like that. Or if you want to erase the pencil, if you erase the pencil a little bit, then the white will go on a little bit better. Okay, so this is the mucky. It hardly even matters. You don't have to worry about getting it right because this is a lumpy little pupa. Okay, so fuss a little bit with it. Got some hairs right here. There. See that? I just added some hairs right there. And then here it is, it's kind of sticking. It's using the surface tension, right? It can kind of stick to the surface of the water. And again, if you want to remind yourself, this is the abdomen. Abdomen. Point down. I'm not going to label those because I'm not 100% sure exactly if those are indeed the gills or not. So there we have most of the life cycles. We didn't draw the adult, but everyone's pretty familiar with that, and that was a little harder to draw. So we have the egg, the first instar, the fourth instar, and the pupa.